when you first came to the school?
When I first came I taught for 3 years down in Florida. Then I came up here in last year, and I taught at Martin Luther King Junior High School in the city. That was pretty crazy, because it went from a suburban atmosphere to right into Manhattan, right into the city. I haven't seen, and I was born in Yonkers, but I'd never spent too much time in New York. You always hear the horror stories of, the New York school system and stuff like that. So actually to be in it was pretty good experience. And then what happened was I live in Yonkers now. So I decided not to go back to Manhattan because the commute was killing me. So this was like 20 minutes from my home. So when I first got here, the principal, Mr. Alexander, brought me down here, showed me the room, which was like heaven to me because before I was teaching a tiny little classroom and doing all the same stuff I did with you guys, but in a tiny little classroom, so it was sort of a nightmare because I couldn't express myself or get out of the students what I really needed to get out of. So when I got here, you guys allowed me to do that, and you also had an interest in film production, which was nice because it was easier to work with. And certain actors that I had worked with here, I feel have amazing potential, and I believe should pursue this as a career because I've taught 1,000 students, and some of the top actors that I've taught came right out of the school. So.
What is the difference between a film teacher and an actor?
Alright. I'd say the biggest difference is, as a film teacher, you have to know everything. You have to know all aspects of pre-production, production, post-production, and you have to figure it out. You have to figure out how to be able to teach it. When I first started in the industry, I was an art major in UMass Boston, and was concentrating in film. And then I moved out to Los Angeles, and that's where I gained all my real-life experience, or Hollywood experience. And I did that for 4 years, and I ran a production company out there as a production manager, and I got into SAG, and I started acting. And when I actually, when I got married back in '99, my wife got pregnant, and I decided to move to Florida, where my family was. So it was interesting to take what I had learned and have to formulate it into the curriculum. And they didn't teach you how to teach, so I was just sort of thrown into a pack of wolves there, and I had to come up with things and make sense out of things that I had learned and try to teach it. With just acting was acting is like my passion. I love acting. I love transforming into characters. I love living in the imagination and coming up with different scenarios. I guess you can call it an escape or an art. I don't know, but I use art for my own personal escape and for my own personal growth and creativity. So I'll say the biggest thing between just acting and teaching it is you got to know a lot more teaching it. You have to master it because if you're trying to teach something, and trust me, you guys are pretty smart, so if there's something that I was teaching that was wrong, I was either called on it or, you guys are, you've been around, so you've seen television, you've seen film, and you know pretty much what's going on. And basically my job was just to sort of say, okay, the things that you saw that's a close-up, I just sort of put the vocab to it, and then help open you guys up to pull out your creativity,
Okay, we know that you're married. How does your wife feel about your work as an actor?
Well, she's an actress as well, and that's how we met. We met on a set out in Hollywood, so those Hollywood stories do exist. So she supports me, and I support her, and a lot of times I'll go home and she'll go out for auditions, and I'll help her and help direct her as well, and she does the same for me. So anytime I've gotten an audition, she's run lines with me as well, and we just support each other and help each other.
Okay. Coming back to the school, do you think Bronx Real Life was a good film, or we could have done better than that, and why?
I think that was the first project we did. I didn't know you guys, and originally what I wanted you guys to do was write your own screenplays. So what I had done is I collected all the screenplays and I read it, and what I decided to do was there was a lot of ideas out there that wanted to be explored by you guys, but it wasn't. I had a time slot of a month because I got hooked up with Channel 68, and the producers wanted a half-hour TV show in a month's time. So if I had to shoot all those little screenplays, it probably never got done. So what I did is I went home, took all those ideas, and sort of channeled them into Bronx Real Life. And that's how I created different, you guys actually created the characters. All I did was sort of write the storylines and go off of your scripts. I feel Bronx Real Life turned out really good for what it was. You know, I think the ideas got across. I think you guys expressed yourselves. As far as you guys acting and taking my direction, I don't think there was one person that didn't do what I asked to their fullest potential. So I can't ask more than that at this stage in the game, you know. And I think there's different levels to the different actors that are here. So obviously some actors got into it a little bit more than other actors. But what I did is you guys all sort of competed against each other. So even though you were acting that day in class, I would take the footage home and analyze it, and whoever actually portrayed that best character or that best moment I would use. So I feel like I took all the best moments for Bronx Real Life. So whoever made that cut, I feel gave a very strong performance. And because of that, I feel that the show came out very good. You know, and I was very pleased with how it turned out. I'd never really done a whole TV show before, just on one little set like that. In Florida, I was going around shooting on locations, you know, and a lot of times we create different sets, but this one we only did it in one set. It was one room, one concept, so the focus was solely on the actors, which I feel was good because it got you guys to come out of yourselves. And I've seen growth in a lot of students just in these last 6 months, you know, which that's a blessing. You can't ask for more than something like that.
Okay, so what's your favorite kind of movies?
Favorite kind of movies? You couldn't tell, huh? From my editing? I like horror films. I don't know, I grew up on them. From a kid, I always got into them. I always had that argument with my parents, you know, because they definitely did not want that. You know, growing up, we grew up in a Catholic household, so you know that was always, I guess, a sort of a battle for me, because I wanted to be able to watch what I wanted to watch and explore. You want to call it the dark side of humanity, because I feel like a lot of times when you watch horror films, they deal with like deeper issues than maybe some other films, you know. And I was always the kind of person who liked to internalize things and analyze them and sort of figure out where they're coming from, and then if they can be changed for the better, how can I, you know, maybe do that, or how can I see a scenario maybe in a film, maybe somehow relate it to my life, you know. I've been pursuing the arts my whole life. I remember the first time I ever drew something. I was in 4th grade. And it was this picture of, it was like around 4 in the morning, I'll never forget this. And I had this image so strong in my head of, it was like this computer guy, and it was like ripping out of sort of like myself, you know. And it was like, as he was ripping out, the body was also sort of transforming into this sort of creature that was sort of ripping out. And ever since then, it was like that was, you know, I found something, you know, in that. And then like when I would do a lot of meditations, I would try to like sort of go into myself and take my experiences and see who I am as a person and how can I express myself, you know, because to me, you have to be able to express yourself. If you don't, then you'll wind up in jail, you know, because everybody got a dark side, you know. And you have to learn how to channel that and express that, you know. At the same time, like I feel like horror and comedy are very similar, as far as sort of setting things up. You know, in a horror film, you have the anticipation built up, and then you get boom, the punchline or the scare. You know, same things in comedy. You know, you set jokes up, and then boom, you're going for the punchline, but you get the joke. You know, so it's the same sort of scenario. So in that way, I do enjoy comedy. So I obviously like enjoy laughing and enjoying life. You know, but I would say, you know, for the most part, I find myself sort of gravitating towards thrillers, horror films, just to see where people are in life, you know, and see where their mentality and states are in mind.